Welcome back. So we now have the capability to place a magic circle. And we're going to be using our magic circle class, which has the decal. And we've seen that if we just drag one of these in, that we get a nice decal on the floor. And when we call our interface function to show it, we can show that decal. Now, our next step for this ability is to actually create the ability. So I'm going to go ahead and close all my tabs, and I'm going to make a new gameplay ability. Now, we have Aura abilities Arcane and Arcane Shards, where the BP magic circle resides. Now, this doesn't have to be here. It could be in the blueprints folder, but for now, I'll keep it here. And we're going to make our new gameplay ability blueprint class. So I'm going to make this based on aura damage gameplay ability because I'd like it to be capable of causing damage. So I'm going to select that class and call this GA_Arcane Shards. So right away, as soon as we create an offensive spell, there are a number of steps that we can take to make sure that this spell works with our system that we have in place. We can set up the ability info, we can create an icon for it, set all of that stuff, and choose where in our spell menu it should go. By the way, as I press play, I notice I keep having to drag my outliner to the side to hit that spells button, and I think I'm going to reset its anchoring before we continue, just for ease of use. So I'm going to go to my overlay folder into WBP overlay and select that spells button. It's anchored to the top left. I think I'm going to anchor it to the bottom right. And that way, if I press play, no matter where it is, it'll always be right there. And as long as it's in front, I can still click it. I'd like the health mana spells to be behind it. So I think if I take my attribute menu button and drag it in front of health mana spells, then no matter how small my window is, at least I'll see those spells on top. And if they're anchored to the edges, then I'll be able to click on them. So I'm going to anchor attributes to the bottom left and spells to the bottom right, like that. So now if I press play, I have my spells button here, even if I have a really small window. And I'll go ahead and make attributes and spells both in front of the XP bar as well. So I'm going to take attribute menu button and drag it just under XP bar, like that. So now I can use those even when testing. So that's going to make things easier for me. Okay, so I'm going to close the overlay and go back into Blueprints Ability System, Aura Abilities, Arcane Shards, and I'm going to open Arcane Shards. And the first thing I'm going to do for Arcane Shards is I want to set its ability tag. Now, in my abilities, I don't even have any ability tags for arcane abilities. So I'm going to need a gameplay tag for Arcane Shards. So for that reason, I'm going to close out of the editor. I'm going to save all my progress. And I'll go ahead and just close all my tabs. And I'm going to find Aura gameplay tags and make a new ability tag. So I have Fire, Firebolt, and Lightning, Electrocute. I'm going to make a new tag. And this can be abilities _arcane _arcane shards. And we can define this. I'm going to go into the CPP file, and I'm just going to find Firebolt. And just under Firebolt and Electrocute, I'm going to put my Arcane. And just to make this easier, I'm going to say offensive spells here. And we'll go ahead and copy Electrocute. And we're going to paste it, and we're going to have Arcane Shards here. So I'm going to use Arcane Shards. The tag will be abilities.arcane shards. And we're going to say Arcane Shards ability tag. And we have the tag. And that's it. We can compile and get back into the Unreal Editor. Okay, so we'll get that Arcane Shards back open, and now we can set its ability tag to abilities Arcane Shards. And now it can be incorporated in with our system. Now, until we get into actually creating the ability, I'm going to hold off on setting all of its parameters, except perhaps for its damage effect class. We know that that's going to be GE damage, as that will be the effect we use for all of these offensive spells. And perhaps our damage type, we could set that too, because we have damage.arcane. We could set that as well. But I'm going to hold off on creating a curve in our damage curve table and setting these parameters because there's a few steps that we should do before all of that. We need to make sure that we have Arcane Shards in our ability info data asset. So I'm going to go to Blueprints Ability System Data and open DA Ability Info. Now, I'm going to go ahead and add one element to this array and set its ability tag to Abilities Arcane, Arcane Shards, and set its ability type. We know that it's an offensive ability, and we can set its icon. Now, I'm going to search for Arcane, and we have Arcane Shards and Arcane Shards 2. Now, I'm going to select Arcane Shards 2, but I'm going to go to it, and we have all of these, and you can double-click them to see what they look like. And here's what Arcane Shards looks like. And this is what I'm going to use for this ability. So Arcane Shards 2 can be the texture that we have set here. Now for the background material, I'm going to, first of all, type in flow and get one of my flowing globe materials. But I'm going to browse to it and choose Arcane skill. And here's what it looks like. You can always change it. The cloud darkness is a negative value. And if you bring it into the positive value, it'll have more of a dark cloud, which I think looks pretty nice. So if you want, change that around and change the perimeter shadow if you want a darker shadow or a brighter one. And once you're happy with how that looks, of course, we'll tweak later. I'm almost certain of it. But once you're happy with that, you can have it selected and go back to the data asset and set that there. And I'm going to set the level requirement to 2 and the ability to GA underscore Arcane Shards. And with that, we have our ability info, and now Arcane Shards is part of our system. And our data-driven system is going to be able to retrieve that data once we need it. Now, as we've seen, that's not the only step, right? We can't just press play and open our spells menu. We can't just, level up and expect to see its icon here if that's where we want it. We can't see it here because we didn't go into the spell tree and assign that ability tag to this particular slot. So that would be the next step. And that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to go to UI, spell menu, and open my offensive spell tree and select this one here. I'd like this one to be the Arcane Shards. So I'm going to set its ability tag to Arcane Shards. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and press play. I'm going to level up. Click on spells, and there's my Arcane Shards right there. And I can spend a point, and it becomes purple, and I can equip it, and it goes right there into my spells. And I do like how it looks this dark, but I think it needs to be a little bit brighter. Either that or my blue should be a little less bright because it looks a little bit off-putting. So I think what I'm going to do is just make a couple tweaks before wrapping up this video. But other than that, we have an Arcane Shards and things are looking good. So let's make a couple tweaks. I'm going to close Ability Info. I'm going to close Arcane Shards. I'm going to take my Arcane Skill BG and I'm going to browse to it and also open up my MI Shock Skill BG right here. And I'm done with my offensive spell tree. So let's do a little bit of tweaking and just make sure that things are looking the way we want them to. Cloud darkness for my shock skill BG could go down, I think, a little bit. In fact, we might even go into the dark cloud region here and see how that looks. It's a little bit, I'd say, too dark. So that might not be a wise decision. I might go back into how it was, but just perhaps increase that perimeter shadow a bit. Let's see how that looks. Because I do like them to glow. Let's see how it looks next to our arcane spell. It looks good next to Arcane. I think Arcane could be a little bit brighter. In fact, we may even have a negative cloud darkness for it, or at least not so dark. We might even bring the color up a little and the perimeter shadow in a little. Okay, that's looking pretty good. I hate to flip-flop back and forth on this, but I do think my cloud darkness may be better as a negative value. And I might bring the color itself down a bit, just so we can have some of those brighter spots in the cloud. Let's see how that looks. I kind of like it a little brighter. I'm kind of feeling that a little bit more. Just trying to sort of see how these look next to each other in different combinations. And what I can do too is I can adjust this material instance as I have my Pi session going, like this. So what I'm going to do is spend a point, equip it, so I can see it in all three locations, and bring my Arcane skill background off screen and just adjust it and see it change dynamically. Okay, I think I got a sweet spot here, and if you'd like to see my parameters, here they are. Cloud darkness, this value, perimeter shadow, this value. I didn't mess with progress. I didn't mess with speed, although we could make speed a little bit different. We can make speed X go in the other direction. We can make speed Y go in the other direction. We can make them slower. That way these don't all have the same exact clouds. And my color is this value. I dragged the value almost down to black. And with the negative cloud darkness, it gives me a good contrast, and it's got some of those more burning, brighter spots there. And I think that looks pretty good. I like how this looks next to the other abilities. We can even move them around, see what they look like in different orders, like so. So I think those are looking pretty good. And with that, we have Arcane Shards, and we're ready to start actually developing this gameplay ability. So I'm going to close those material instances, I'm going to save all, and I'll see you in the next video.